Season 3 is here, finally.
Whoop whoop.
And you're the first guest for Season 3, by the way. So, guys, we are not in Houston. As usual, we are in L.A.
That's right. Welcome.
On Sunset Boulevard. Man, it feels good to be out here. I'm not going to. The energy here is different than Houston. No disrespect. Love the H, but this is different.
I'm so glad, man. I've never been to Houston. I've always wanted to go.
You should come.
Yeah.
Just hit me up when you come.
I
We'll have
will.
a good time. And then I'll send you my favorite food spots like you did for me.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a lot of friends who are from Texas, and
Oh, yeah?
they always have they're obviously so hospitable, so down to earth, so kind. LA is an amazing place, but sometimes LA people can be a little difficult.
We're big on our manners.
That's
in
right.
Texas. So let me introduce you. This is Kevin Nahai. He is a life coach, a mentor, an inspiration.
Thank you, man.
He's now at I'm gonna call you an influencer. He's an influencer, guys, on social media. And I wanted to have you on because I think your story is something that a lot of people can relate to and get something from. Because now, it's kind of like I don't even feel right calling it trendy because you have like a negative connotation to trendy.
Mm-hmm.
But, mental health is a trendy thing now, and more people are coming out about it and, being more transparent about it. And not to, we're going to get to everything, but the way you were able to navigate through and then ultimately make it to the point you are now, I think can help a lot of people. So
Thank you, man.
Thank you for coming on.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So your journey started when you were 19. Am I correct?
That's
When
correct.
you were just going into college, and you found out you had Chrons disease.
Yes.
So having to find out that you had that disease, which is incurable, right?
Yes.
Okay, so finding out that you had that disease while you're in this transformative period in your life already, in your first year of college, can you take us through that moment when you found out the news, and what was your reaction?
Yeah. That's a great question. I don't think anybody has asked me, take me back to that moment when you found out.
Yeah.
That's a great question. So, yeah, when I was 18 in high school, I was very popular and I had a lot of friends and I was healthy and happy and just generally doing well and having a good life, thank God. Summer before college, I was pretty nervous because I was about to leave everything that I knew, and obviously it's a time of transition. And then my first month of college, I became extremely sick, and I started having internal bleeding in my stomach, and I was not able to hold down any food, and I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure out, was this stress? Was this a stomach bug? I really didn't know what was going on. And this transition hit me like a ton of bricks because I had left my family, left my friends, left this very small school where I grew up.
How far away were you from your hometown? Or
not far in terms of miles because I went to USC
but it was
here
still
in downtown.
A new environment. And
exactly.
Okay.
And I do not do well with change.
Right.
So basically what happened was I got extremely sick, but I sort of tried to hide it for about 2 weeks. I didn't tell anybody, and I was kind of pretending that it was going to go away. And then one day I got so sick that I had to be taken to the ER. And, I had to call my parents and tell them what had been going on the last couple of weeks. And, of course, they were like, well, what the hell? Why haven't you told us about these symptoms? And, you're bleeding and you're throwing up and you're pain. And they saw that I had lost like 12 pounds within the first 2 weeks of school or something crazy like that. So they asked me, what the hell was going on, and I went to the ER, and at the ER they told me, look, we think there might be something wrong with your stomach. You need to go to a specialist. So I went to a specialist, God bless him, and, he was really the first person who was able to kind of tell me what was going on, ran a bunch of tests, and he told me that I have ulcerative colitis, which is kind of like the ugly step cousin of Chrons disease. So Crohn's and colitis are very similar. They're both vicious autoimmune diseases of the stomach, and they're incurable. And the thing with autoimmune diseases that I didn't know at the time is that they are 100% exacerbated by stress.
Okay,
So-
I want to stop you there.
Okay.
So, my book club choice is called "What Happened to You," by Oprah and Dr. Bruce Perry.
Nice.
And they talk extensively in this book about how the things you go through, specifically in your childhood, can lead to health problems.
Physical ailments,
And
yes.
people don't think about that. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
literally stress can, like I did an ACE test with my Instagram followers. And the ACE test is based on these 10 questions that they came up with. And the higher your score, the more likely you were to have severe health issues in your future. And so when I was doing research for this podcast and I heard you say that, I was like, whoa. They also said this in this book, and that's something that people really don't put together. They don't put two and two together. Like, literally, stress and the things you go through as a child and as an adult can lead to major health issues.
Exactly. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
The first time I learned this was when I was 24, after I had already had this disease for 5 years.
Okay.
And this was why the disease, I was battling it and losing over and over again, because I was trying to treat the physical symptoms. I was trying to take a bunch of medications and, do surgery and go to the hospital and do this and that to get rid of the physical ailments. But I didn't understand that really what I needed to treat was the underlying psychological and emotional issues that caused me to end up with this disease in the first place.
What was it that gave you that enlightenment?
A book called When the Body Says No.
Okay.
It's called When the Body Says No, The Stress Disease Connection. And it's by an Eastern European doctor. His name is Gabor Mate. I can send you the link.
Okay.
But now more and more researchers and doctors are starting to understand this stress disease connection. And I went to the best doctors in the world at the time because, my parents were doing everything they could. I was really bad, man. I mean, at one point I was down to 112 pounds and I'm 5'9". So I was pure skin and bone. I couldn't eat anything. I was in excruciating pain. And of course I had all sorts of emotional trauma and issues that went along with this. So my family and my parents were trying to get me all of the help that they could. And I kid you not one doctor, the best medical doctors in the world, not one of them said to me, "What's going on in your emotional life? How are you dealing with this in terms of your stress and your feelings? What happened in high school, in middle school, when you were a kid? What are some of the underlying psychological ailments that could be causing this? And now, what's happening in your life right now that's exacerbating it and making it worse?"
Right.
So, anyway,
Western medicine can only go so far because they don't deal with those issues, those emotional issues.
exactly.
Yeah.
And you need both.
You do.
You need Western medicine because I'm on medication now that without it I'd be very sick.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had relied solely on Western medicine and I didn't understand the Eastern practices of the connection between the mind and the body, then I would still be extremely sick.
Right.
So that's a little about, and to answer your question, the moment that I got diagnosed, it was one of the scariest moments of my life because my doctor said, "This is something you have, and if you don't treat it now, you're going to get colon cancer by the time you're 25.
Wow.
And 3 separate doctors told me the same thing. So I knew that was legit because I, was having a pretty bad case at the time. The ironic thing was that I tried and tried and tried to clean it up and to get better, and I couldn't.
Right.
Because, as I said, I was only treating the physical ailments. I wasn't treating the psychological ailments.
Right. The word incurable.
It's a scary one, man.
When they told you that, what went through your head? Incurable. When you heard that word.
The first thing that went through my head was, what the hell am I going to do?
Yeah.
It was just shock, and then you feel like there's something wrong with you. You feel like a cripple. You feel like girls are never going to want you. You feel like anywhere you go, you're always going to have to take medication with you. You feel like a second-class citizen.
Right.
You don't feel like a regular human being. And that feeling, that way of seeing yourself, does more damage than the disease itself. And I will say that again. Seeing yourself as a cripple, seeing yourself as undesirable, unlovable, as a victim to this terrible thing that you have to deal with the rest of your life, that perception of yourself is more damaging than the disease.
Wow. So
And the way
your self-perception is more damaging than the disease itself.
Yes. And I will tell you how I know this. May God strike me dead if I'm exaggerating. The reason that I know this is that now I'm happy, I'm confident, I'm strong, I'm in great shape, thank God. I don't see myself as a cripple. I don't see myself as unlovable. I don't even think of the word incurable anymore the way that I used to. And now my disease is totally under control. Do I have bad days? Of course.
Yeah.
Do I wish I didn't have it? Of course. Is it my fault that I have it? Of course not. Right? But now that I see myself as the one who controls this disease, and I see myself as the one who has the power to have an amazing life, even though I have to live with this, the disease is manageable. It's when I see myself as a slave to the disease and someone who's paralyzed and someone who's never going to have a good life, that's when the disease is actually will kill you.
Right.
So it's really the perception of yourself that's doing the most damage.
I think that's so powerful. The perception of yourself is even deadlier than the disease itself. That's a tweetable moment, guys. That's write that down because that's very important. And so you were saying now that you're in a place to where you're great, right? And you have your days. But there was a time to where you were at a place that was very dark.
Oh yeah.
And it got to the place to where you were thinking about committing suicide.
Yes.
So I've never had that thought process, thank God. But I've had family members who've had it, but you really can't understand it, if you're not going through it. But can you just, in your best way, just kind of take us through what's going on in your head when you're contemplating suicide? Are you thinking about, like, if I do this? Are you thinking about your family? Or are you just, thinking about you? Or you're thinking, like, the pain is too much to bear, I can't do it anymore? What is that mindset? Because I feel like a lot of people have opinions on people who commit suicide, but they don't really know what it's like to be in that mind frame.
Yeah, I mean, some people have had it way worse than me. Some people, actually took a gun to their head, and by the grace of God, they missed their brain by half an inch or something, and then they lived to tell the tale. I didn't have anything crazy like that. But what I can tell you, about the mindset that you're in when you're suicidal, or even when you're just severely depressed, it's not a mindset that you can really understand, as you said, unless you've been there. Yeah. But it's a couple of things. First of all, you have to understand that people who think like that, they're sick. Yeah. They're not healthy human beings. When I was 19 and 20 and I was thinking like that, I did not have the brain function of a regular 20-year-old. So you have to understand, it's kind of like you're talking to an alien. It's kind of like you're talking to somebody who's from a different planet. When you tell them, I love you, I'm here for you, I support you, don't take your life, let's get you in therapy. When you are like a support system to them, you're speaking Chinese to them. I would not have understood that.
You're actually helping me because I don't want to put out anybody's business, so I'm going to just say a family member.
Okay.
Like when I'm trying to get to a family member who's dealing with this, like depression, and I'm trying to get to them, And it's kind of like what you said. It's like speaking a different language. Like they don't.
They're not going to get it.
No, it's like nothing. Like
Yeah.
like it just bounces off.
Exactly. It just goes in one ear and out the other. And you can't blame them for that because they're sick.
Yeah.
They're so sick that their entire brain chemistry has changed.
Mm-hmm.
Their body has changed. Their muscles, their heart. You know, the body physically changes when you are depressed,
Yep.
to the point where things in your blood cells start to happen.
Another thing they talk about in the book.
Okay.
Yep.
It's really crazy. Your body also majorly changes when you have anxiety. Again, to the point where your blood cells, if you taste the blood of a healthy person and you taste the blood of an anxious person, they taste different. The blood of an anxious person is more sour. Fun fact, but it's crazy. Anyway,
Wow.
The point is, so the first thing is that people who are depressed or suicidal, you got to understand that you're not going to be able to speak their language, because where they're at in life is just, you can't really put yourself there.
Right.
However, here's what you can do. I can't speak for everybody. When people think of people who are suicidal, the first thing that comes to mind is you want to take your life because the pain is too great, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're in so much pain that you just want to like escape this earth and go to somewhere peaceful.
Right.
There is an element of that.
Mm-hmm.
There was an element of that for me. But I'll tell you what the bigger element was for me. The bigger element for me was, and this is dark, so I'm sorry,
Hey, people are going through this.
Bear with me.
Go there. Yeah.
The bigger element for me was, I hate myself so much
Mm-hmm.
that if I live or die, it's not going to matter. And yeah, I thought about my mom, and I thought about my sister, and I thought about people who love me. But really, truly, what was going through my head was, I hate who I am, and I hate my life so much that the world will be a better place without me. If I don't wake up tomorrow, people will be sad, but the world is just going to roll on. That's honestly how I thought. And from talking to other people who have had this type of depression, they have been like, yes, that is on the money.
That's how that family member is,
That-
actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
So there were two things that really brought me out of that.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing was that I had a couple friends, God bless them, who told me, hey man, whatever you're going through, I'm here for you. If you want to get ice cream, I'm here for you. If you want to talk about it, I'm here for you. If you don't want to talk about it, I'm here for you. Just know that I care about you, right? It was a couple of people who really saved my life by just telling me that, not putting pressure on me, not what's going on with you, you need therapy, you need this, but just reminding me that I actually matter. Exactly. But the thing that really got me out of it was, I have a younger cousin. She's like a little sister to me, and I love her more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that really got me out of it was realizing that she needed my help. And so it was no longer about me. It was, I have to get myself out of this, and I can't commit suicide because there's someone else in the world
Mm-hmm.
who needs me. And that has been the most powerful thing.
Just saving grace.
Yes. The most powerful saving grace I have seen is not when someone overcomes their transformation, overcomes their problems for themselves.
Right.
It's when they overcome their problems because there's a higher purpose for them.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be there for someone else. Maybe your higher purpose is God, right? I can't take my life and I can't succumb to whatever's going on in my life because I am a warrior of God and I have to stay loyal to God. Maybe it's your mom. My mom is sick. I'm her caregiver. I'm all she has left. So I have to be there for her.
Right.
Maybe it's your work, your best friend, your son, whatever. Mm-hmm. When you take yourself out of the equation and you make someone else or something else the reason why you have to carry on, then your chances are much, much higher because it's no longer about you.
Right.
However, the catch-22 is that when you're depressed like that,
It's hard to see that.
you are all you think about.
Right. Yeah.
And that's why you're so fucking depressed, excuse my
Very
language.
fine.
The reason we're so depressed is that all we think about all day long is me, me, me.
Right.
And the reason that I'm happy now
Mm-hmm.
is that all day long I'm doing my best to help other people.
Right.
So I don't even have time to think about my own dumb shit.
Right.
We all have dumb shit, but I'm happy now because I think about it and I deal with it with my therapy and with my coach and whatever. And then the rest of the time I'm trying to do kind things for other people, and that is what helps me.
One thing I like about you and your platform is that kind of a problem I have with self-help people is that they, paint this picture of you can be this, you can do that, but they don't really include the how-to manual,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when a person sees that and they try to, emulate that, and then it doesn't work, then they'll fall right back into it. So what I like about you is,
And they think they're a failure.
right, exactly,
Because
like,
they think
it worked for that person, but it didn't work for me.
exactly.
Yeah. And what I like about you is you are like transparent in the way that you tell people, hey, like you're a life coach, but you're like really like a coach. Like if you think in sports,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
tell an athlete like, hey, you can be really good, but you're gonna have to be in this gym every day,
Mm-hmm.
working at your craft. And that's the same thing with your mental health and your well-being. It's like every day you wake up, and this is for anybody. Like you don't even have to have like severe depression. Like you can just be quote unquote, live a normal life. But every day you get up, you're gonna have a set of challenges, and you're gonna have to redo. You know what I mean? And you're gonna have to work on yourself every single day. But what I find is like a lot of these self-help people don't preach that, and that's what I like about your platform.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, most of the self-help community is telling you what you need to do, not how you need to do it. They'll say, oh, you need to love yourself more. Well,
Like
okay,
Yeah.
No shit, Sherlock.
Right.
Oh, well, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
What does the term to love yourself mean,
Yeah.
and how do I do
It's
it?
subjective, right? People, like, you can love yourself in different ways. Like people have different ways of going about,
Right.
loving
So,
themselves.
I need some guidance. Like I'm listening to this podcast, I'm reading this book or whatever because I need practical guidance.
Right.
And yeah, so that's something I really try to do is get very down into the nitty-gritty of the how-to. But the other thing that you just mentioned about practicing every day, people don't like to hear that.
Yeah.
And I push that message all the time. I tell people, we were talking about Kobe earlier, and look, man, everybody knows the stories about Kobe.
Yeah.
First in the
Legendary work ethic.
gym, last to leave,
Yep.
used to shoot 100 free throws a day or whatever he would do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And, when it comes to our emotional issues, when it comes to our physical health, when it comes to our relationships, you don't have to do a Kobe.
Right.
You don't have to work on it 12 hours a day because that's going to drive you nuts.
Right.
But you do have to do something every day. There's no such thing as being the world champion of self-help. But, so like you can't try to be that the way Kobe was trying to be the world champion of basketball.
Right.
But if you're trying to get better at tennis, you have to go practice tennis several times a week, right?
Yes.
So you're not going to be great at tennis by playing once a week with your instructor.
Right.
The instructor is going to tell you, hey, like this will help you, but the other 3-4 days a week, you got to be here putting in your shots.
Right.
It's the same exact thing with our finances, our relationships, our body, whatever. No one loses.
And understanding, like, to continue the sports analogy, it's another thing that they don't preach is that there will be setbacks. Like,
Absolutely.
Kobe didn't have a great game every time, but his dedication to getting better didn't change. Like some days he had an off game, but he didn't quit.
Right.
He just went back to work.
Right.
That's something else that is not preached a lot either. Like you're gonna have setbacks. Like it's inevitable. It's gonna happen.
Yeah, they don't. And when it comes to setbacks, we actually are fed the opposite message. We're fed the wrong message.
Right.
So there is something that I call the paradox of success. And I say the paradox of success is that you will be successful if you're willing to set the bar just low enough. And it's a paradox because when you think of being successful, you think, I got to set my bar high.
Yeah.
I got to put it up here, and then I have to strive every day to meet this standard, okay?
Right.
That's not how Kobe did it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how anybody who's successful does it.
Mhm.
What they do is they set a bar that's down here at knee level. When they reach that bar, they bring it up a few inches to hip level. When they reach hip level, they bring their bar up to the torso level, right? So every time you hit a success, you are now at your level of competency. So you push it up a little more, and then now you're at that level. So as you raise your bar, your level of competency in whatever you're doing, losing weight,
Mhm.
getting healthier, it doesn't matter. You know, your finances, whatever you're doing, your bar is slowly increasing. But if you have a standard for yourself and you put it above your head, it's like a baby trying to dunk on a 10-foot hoop, right? The baby needs time to grow. The baby needs time to learn how to play basketball. Eventually, when that baby grows into a full-grown man, he will dunk, right? But you'll be successful if when you're starting out in whatever endeavor it is, you have the humility to set the bar a little lower.
Right.
Reach that bar, then raise it. Because I'm sure anybody who, you know, going back to the Kobe analogy, everybody knows that he didn't go from being he wasn't world champion when he was 17 years old.
I'll give you a perfect example.
Tell me.
I have Kobe stories for days.
Okay.
So when he was when he first moved back from Italy to Philadelphia, you know, the competition is a lot different here in the States. So all these kids in his class was way better than him.
The Philly kids.
Yeah, the Philly kids were way better than him. So Kobe, which is crazy, at like 13, devised a plan to get a little bit better every year.
Mm.
And he said, the thing that separates me from these guys is that they are relying on athleticism, but they can't outwork me.
Mm.
You know, so year by year, I'm going to get a little bit better. And he said he got a little bit better every year. This year, he added a fadeaway. This year, he added a jumper. This year, he added this. And to when they got to like 18, it wasn't close.
Right.
So that kind of goes to what you were saying.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
I recently started investing in stocks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anything really about the stock market. My best friend has been helping me. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you hear about these people who invest in the stock market and they become millionaires and then they retire when they're like 35. Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know how any of those people did it, but what I do know from reading all of these books on finance is that if you invest, let's say $1,000 a month or $500 a month or whatever into a certain stock and it has a 10 or 20% interest rate, and every month you put a little bit more, then that interest compounds. Right. And so now you're making money on the interest as well as making money on the initial amount that you put in. Right. Okay. So every month you're putting in $500. Then eventually you start putting in $750. Then eventually you start putting in $1,000. And as you put in more and more money, the amount of money that you're making on that investment is growing because the initial amount is getting larger. The point I'm trying to make is I can't go from having $1,000 in my bank account to investing $100,000 into a stock account.
Right.
It has to be baby steps. It's a process. Yeah. But that process is you will be successful if you start with a lower bar and then just be patient and raise it a little bit, a few inches every time.
Right. So I want to go back real fast. So we're talking about giving people like tangible things, steps. So when you were coming out of your depression and all that, take us through your day-to-day routine, your day-to-day quote-unquote practice in order to get you to where you are right now.
Okay, well, first of all, it didn't start until after, I want to say, a good 4 years of being like severely depressed, anorexic, anxious, sick. So my routine while I was in that state of mind and that physical state was terrible. But in order to make it better, I'll tell you some of the practical things that I did. Man, there are so many. And I didn't do them all at the same time, by the way. I applied the baby step principle. Yeah. First thing I started doing was I got a job that I enjoyed. I got a job at a coffee shop because I really like people and I really like food and drinks and hospitality. So I got a job where the environment was somewhere that I wanted to be in, and it took my mind off of things. And I really enjoy serving people food, drinks. I really enjoy creating a hospitable experience. So again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, which was what could I do that was gonna allow me to do something nice for other people. Okay. So I had that. This is, I'm skipping over some timelines, but another thing that I did was I got a meditation teacher, and he taught me how to meditate. And I meditate every day, twice a day, for the last, 5 years or so. And that meditation has saved my life because it brought my anxiety way down. You don't need to get a meditation teacher. You can use Calm. You can use Headspace. You can use YouTube. The key is the only bad meditation is the one you don't do. So as long as you meditate for 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day, 7 days a week, it'll make a huge difference in your life. That was another one of the practical tools. The third one, which is perhaps the most useful, was I got professional help, and I stopped trying to do it on my own. Over the course of the last 10 years, I've had a couple coaches, I've had a couple of therapists, I've had a couple of specialists in, different areas of my life, and I made the investment in them, and it was expensive. And when I was young, my parents helped me. When I was older, I started to pay for it. But, if you were drowning in the ocean and I threw you a life jacket, are you going to throw it behind your head and say, no, I got this, I'm going to do it on my own?
I would not.
You would not. No, but that's what we do when we're struggling is we don't
suppress it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we don't spend the money and the time to actually work with professionals. That was the third thing. The fourth thing was that I found outlets for myself. One of my outlets is playing music. Another one of my outlets is exercising. And I made it a point to play music, to exercise, to meditate every day. And then I had my job on the day, whatever days I had the work, and I had my therapy and my coaching on whatever days I had the work. So the point was that 5, 6, 7 days a week, I was doing something. I was doing one thing that was constructive. Exactly.
I know I keep plugging this book. It is my book club choice, so I should plug it. But it's a great book.
Is that what it says too?
Yes.
Yes.
It was going to your point about exercising and playing music. It was saying the key to getting back regulated or balanced is rhythm. Walking, running, exercising, music. They said since you were a child in your mother's womb, you were conditioned to see rhythm with balance when you hear your mother's heartbeat. And when you're a child, a baby, obviously when you're upset, you're crying, you rock the baby.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's all rhythm, and we've been conditioned to see rhythm with balance. So when you made that point about you exercising and playing music, I thought about that.
Yeah. Man, I've never read this book, but you're bringing it up often as I'm talking because the things I'm saying are not rocket science.
Right.
Everybody has heard some version of this. What's the difference between me and whoever is listening to this right now?
Sure.
The difference is one word: consistency. The difference is you find an action that's going to make you feel better, and you take that action and you do it day in, day out.
Work. Put in the work.
Just putting in the work, and it doesn't have to be that much. It's just consistency. Now, there are two other things that I want to mention in terms of my practical guidance of how I got myself out of depression that are so important. One is I started making better choices in terms of how I spend my time. I stopped going to stupid parties. I stopped drinking alcohol. I was never a big drinker, but I drank for the first couple months of college. And I was like, this doesn't do anything for me and makes me feel terrible. I stopped going on dates with girls who made me feel terrible. And I stopped hanging out with people who made me feel terrible. I lost a lot of friends my first couple years of college, people who I'd been friends with from high school and childhood. I didn't lose them by choice. They saw that I was going through a hard time and they ditched my ass. But you know what? Instead of chasing after those people, I let them go and I replaced them with new people and better people who actually had my back.
Right.
So when I say I made wiser choices in terms of my time and who I spent my time with, I really started kind of aligning myself with where I wanted to be rather than where I was. Because where I was lost, alone, depressed, confused, and losing my friends, and no girls wanted to talk to me, and etc. You know, not making great decisions. And I said, okay, this is not where I want to be.
Right.
So let me choose friends and environments that align with where I do want to be.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. Instead of letting life happen to you, you took control of it.
I tried, yeah.
Yeah.
I tried. And that's a decision every single person. I mean, if you want to know what God is, God is the fact that God is the blessing that every morning you wake up, you have the ability to choose. You can choose where you go. You can choose what you say to yourself. You can choose who you call. You can choose what you do that day to make your life better.
Right.
That is, I don't know any freedom that's greater than that.
But going back to your point about at the beginning about perception.
Yes.
You can't get to that point until you change your perception.
Yep.
Because if your perception of yourself is negative, then you're going to think that you deserve bad friends. You deserve women who treat you like trash. Like, that's how you'll feel.
Of course, man. I mean, why did I have bad friends and women who treated me like trash? Because I was treating myself like trash, you know? I don't want to say that it was my fault, because I don't want anyone to feel like if bad things happen to them in their lives, like they did something wrong.
Right.
You know, but the truth is that how is anybody going to respect you if you disrespect yourself?
Right.
How is anybody going to look at you and say, wow, I would love to be friends with that person. He's such an inspiration. If you're completely down in the dumps and you hate yourself and you think you're like the worst thing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So we really do, you know, so much of the people who we attract into our lives and so much of the treatment we receive in our lives is based on our treatment of ourselves.
Sure. My dad always says you teach people how to treat you.
You teach people how to treat you, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recently heard that you get in life what you tolerate.
Right.
You know, and of course, bad things happen to people all the time, and it's not your fault, you know, but when it comes to people, if you tolerate poor treatment, it's going to continue. And more importantly, if you're disrespecting yourself and if you're treating yourself poorly, then that's exactly how people are going to treat you.
Exactly. So how do we get from Chrons disease, depression, to life coach, mentor?
Well,
I know that's a long process, by the way, but
yeah. I won't walk you through, you know, the entire process step by step, because
it's kind of what gave you that idea. What clicked in your head? Like, okay, I think this is where I'm going to go now.
Yeah. So it was a few things. First of all, ever since I was a kid, like 12, 13 years old, people always told me, oh, you got to be a therapist. You got to write a book. You got to give speeches. And I would always think, oh, no, you know what? Why would anybody want to hear what I have to say?
Right.
I always kind of brushed it off. But I did always have an ability to connect with people and listen to them and, you know, I guess make them feel good. I guess that was just kind of a talent that I was born with, maybe. So later in my life, I started to think, well, maybe I do have this ability. Maybe I do have this talent to connect with people and understand them, because people have been telling me that my whole life.
Right.
So that was the first thing. The second thing, though, was I had a realization that my story was not unique, and that almost everyone I know who's in their 20s and 30s, including all the people who are in this room right now, have dealt with some form.
Everybody has something.
Yes,
Yeah.
we've all dealt with some form of the issues I've talked about on this podcast. We have all dealt with some form of depression, relationship issues, low self-confidence, not knowing what you want to do with your life, not liking your body. Like, let's just take those 5 areas.
Right.
Everyone
Almost everybody
has dealt with
Yep.
some form of that. And so what I realized was, oh my God, I have this crazy story and I was so depressed and I was suicidal and blah, blah, blah. But, for most people, even if they didn't get to that extreme, they share a part of my story. And they are going through some form, some degree of what I went through.
Right.
And when I realized that, it was like a real come to Jesus moment where, I felt like I was kind of being slapped in the face, which was, why the hell are we all so anxious, confused, depressed, lost? We're supposed to be in the prime of our lives.
Mhm.
Why are we all going through this?
Right.
What is going on here? What's in the water? And nothing's in the water. It's that we're not making the right decisions.
Mhm.
It's that we're consuming the wrong information. It's a lack of faith. It's a lack of consistency. It's a lack of practice. And it's a lack of accountability and personal responsibility. And every one of those things that I just said, I didn't have any of it. I didn't have any faith. I didn't have any personal responsibility. I had all the wrong information and so forth and so on.
Mhm.
So when I had this realization, what came to mind for me was, people have been telling me that I'm good with people and that I connect with them.
Mhm.
So this could be a good profession for me. But B, no one taught me this. I had to learn all of this stuff myself over the course of the last 10 years.
Right.
Maybe I can save people some time. Maybe I can share, they say that a smart person learns from their mistakes, but a wise person learns from others' mistakes.
Yep.
Right? So maybe I can take somebody, hold their hand and say, yo, don't make my mistakes.
Right.
Let me tell you what I went through. Let me tell you how I turned it around. And that way, you can get your life back on track faster than I did.
Right. Man. So it goes back to what you were saying earlier about even you were setting these steps without even knowing it, from like the coffee shop service, all these things you did in service to others, and which ultimately led to what you're doing now.
Yeah, and I said earlier that I'm skipping over a lot of steps because, it was a lot of trial and error, man. Those are the things that worked for me, but I only know that stuff now. I didn't know it at the time. At the time, I was fumbling.
Throwing stuff at the wall.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of stuff that did not work.
Right.
I had a lot of friendships that didn't work out. I had girlfriends that didn't work out. I joined clubs that didn't work out. I read self-help books that I had that experience where I was like, well, everyone else is getting it. Why aren't I? What's wrong with me?
Right.
So a lot of stuff didn't work out. But now what I want to do is sort through all of that and be able to share with people, here's the stuff that works and here's the stuff that is a waste of time.
Right. How do you deal with life coach skepticism?
Okay, well, first of all, I hate the word life coach.
Okay. What do you prefer?
Well, whatever. For me,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. I mean, I call myself a personal coach.
Personal coach.
Because for me, it's really about the personal relationship.
Right.
And also life coach is just so all encompassing. Like there are 10,000, but look, man, the skepticism should be real.
Yeah.
There's a lot of terrible coaches out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of terrible therapists out there. I don't know if you've ever been in therapy.
I haven't.
Okay, well, if you ever spend some time in therapy.
I preach it so much, but I haven't been in.
I preach it so much too, but I preach it with the caveat that, therapists are extremely private about their private lives. They don't share anything with you. A lot of the time that's because their private lives are so messed up. And they're kind of telling you, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
So, and there's a lot of coaches like that too, man.
Right.
So the skepticism is real, and look, I'm not perfect. I've got a lot of problems in my life, just like everybody else.
Which I think is important to verbalize to
yeah.
whoever, like, hey, I'm not coming off as, holier than thou. Like, I'm still in a process myself.
Yes.
But I'm just, telling you what I've learned thus far.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's important because when you come to people like that, then it's like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, like I do a ton of dating and relationship coaching, but I'm not married. but I preach the importance of marriage and long-term relationships all the time, right? So there's an example of how I'm not perfect and I don't have it figured out yet. However, what I do have is every issue that I work on with people is something that I've overcome. Like before, I had no idea what goes into a healthy relationship. Now I know exactly how to have a healthy relationship.
Right.
Before, I kept attracting the wrong people for me, who we were not a match. Now, every time I go on a date with somebody, it's pretty close.
Yeah.
It's somebody that has potential. I feel good about it. Before, I hated my dating life. Now I'm pretty happy with my dating life. So those are things I have figured out. Have I taken it all the way? Do I have $1 million in the bank, beautiful house in the hills, baby, wife, all these things? No, but I know what it takes to get there.
Right.
And alongside you, I'm in the process of building that. And the only difference is that I figured these things out through trial and error. And now I'm going to teach you and help you save a little bit of time.
Right. So there's somebody watching right now who's ready to give up, thinking they can't continue, thinking that they're less than. So if you had some advice for them, what would it be?
First of all, there is no limit to the number of things you can do with your life, and there's no limit to the power that your life can have when you make a decision that you want better than what's right now. But I can't bring you to that place to want better. It's not that hard to change. It's really hard to want to change. So what I would say is get on your knees and ask God or your spirit guides or the universe or your friends. Ask someone to give you the courage to change. Ask someone to give you the strength and help you get to the place where you want better for your life. Because you have to want better for your life. And if you do, then you can learn the right changes to implement. And then, as I said, there's no limit to what you can do. But no one's going to do it for you. And this isn't the most loving thing I could say. It's not the most compassionate thing I could say. But it's the most helpful thing I can say. The most helpful thing I can say is you can have anything you want in your life, but no one's going to do it for you. And whatever has happened to you in your life, I am so sorry. I wish I could take your pain away. But now that it's here, you own the market. If something breaks in aisle 6 and there's a spill, if a little kid comes in and breaks something in the market, you have to clean it because it's your market. Your life. I'm so sorry that this is what has happened. And again, I wish I could take your pain away. But it's on you. I can help, and your friends can help, and other people can support you. But you're the one who has to want to make those changes. And as soon as you do, that's 70% of the battle right there.
Right. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you guys for listening. And that is it for this episode of the All That Podcast.